Good day, everyone. I pray all is well with everyone on this beautiful day. It's an honor to be addressing you on at this monumentous ceremony. It's by the grace of God and Dr. Martin Luther King's efforts in the civil rights movements that affords me the opportunity to address you this morning. The laws that were changed because of his work denied people of color their civil rights, subjected them to public humiliation, and enforced educational oppression. His actions gave me, and many like me, the opportunity to do what I do each and every day, take care of the sick, young and old. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Baptist minister who had faith in God enough to allow the Lord to use him to create change in the United States. I'm sure in the 1950s and 1960s, many were very skeptical as to whether or not civil rights reform would ever come to pass. But as the word says in Mark 10 and 27, with man, this is impossible, but not with God. All things are possible. Dr. King believed that there could be change, and in his I Have a Dream speech, he said he had a dream that his 4 little children would one day live in a nation where they would not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. In 1963, when Dr. Reverend King gave this speech, I was only a dream in my mother and father's minds. She had been trying to have a child and had already had 5 miscarriages before my birth. And back then, having a child that could become a doctor was almost unimaginable. You see, my mother had a 6th grade education and my father graduated high school in the Army. And my grandmother was born into slavery. But God. Now, I'm not saying we live in a perfect society, far from it. But we all realize we have progressed in this country. And our country is different from when Dr. Martin Luther King was alive. We may not be where we want to be, but thank God we're not where we used to be. If it were not for the grace of God and our country changing, this little black girl from a country town called Cankton, Louisiana, could not have achieved all that I have. I acknowledge that I'm standing on the shoulders of so many that have come before me. James McEwen was the first African-American male doctor in the United States, 1813 to 1865. Rebecca Lee Crumpler was the first African-American female doctor in the United States, 1831 to 1895. And a host of other African-American male and female doctors that have had to endure racism, prejudice, hatred, and threats. Presently, there is less than 3.8% African-American doctors that are neonatologists. But God. I believe these people achieve greatness as Dr. Martin Luther King did by the grace of God and his unmerited favor. In Romans 8 and 28 it states, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose." Dr. King's gift was that of inspiration and guidance to effect change. 1 Peter 4 and 10 states, "Each of you should use whatever gifts you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." Neonatology, the caring of sick newborns, is my purpose, my calling. The Lord allows me the opportunity to be used as his vessel to share my life's experiences as a mother of a preterm baby with hurting parents. And if it were not for people like Dr. Martin Luther King, none of this would be possible for me and many others like me. Dr. King had faith that he could be used by God, and no matter how small your faith is, you can be used as well. Matthew 17 and 20 says, "If ye have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to the mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move. Nothing is impossible for you." That mountain for Dr. Martin Luther King was segregation, and it was removed. The mountain for me was ever believing I could be a doctor. But God. Philippians 4 and 13 says, "I can do all things through him who strengthens me." Now, Dr. King's passion was service. Even on the night of his I Have Been to the Mountaintop sermon, he was feeling ill. But when he was called to complete his task, he did. Here at Lake Charles Memorial, we use our God-given gifts to serve the sick and sometimes dying population. Our jobs are not easy, sometimes unbelievably hard, but we should take solace in knowing that we're doing God's work. We are His servants doing His will to care for His children, every race, color, or creed. Whether they can pay or not, our mission is to serve. So today, on this day of celebration of this great man, I call on each and every one of you to dig down deep and continue to help Lake Charles Memorial serve our community to the best of our God-given ability. Thank you and God bless.